IVM.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Simplified. This time hosted by elusive Pimpernel. What is that? Scarlet Pimpernel. You never find him. Naren the Shenoy. And,
you're talking about yourself. I thought you were slightly referring to the fact
what is my name?
I thought you were slightly referring to the fact that Shriket's not here.
So, hi Chuck.
Yeah, hi.
Hi Tony.
Hi, Naren. You look like you've had a nice biryani.
Yeah. Yeah. So today we celebrated achievement of production targets in our factory.
Yeah.
By having biryani for everyone.
Yeah, and listeners, this is not an innuendo. Just
It's a treat for the factory and the olive factory.
And
you missed that. Yeah. Thanks to Tony, I have a feeling on the average listening speed of Simplified will go down from 1.5 to. You're like,
What is that again? Yeah, sly ones. Tony is very adept at.
Yeah.
So
he's very dumb.
Yeah. We used to do a lot of this back in the Twitter days as well.
Yeah.
So there was this golden period when Chuck, Tony and I used to, among other people.
Which is what that shorty was going to be all about. So we will talk about it then.
Okay. So, yeah.
I think you remember we had asked our listeners if they listen to podcasts on radio speed. Someone wrote to me saying they do for foreign language podcasts. So like Duolingo has these, like when you're learning French and all, they have podcasts. So you probably turn down the speed and listen to it because you need more time to comprehend a foreign language.
Yeah, otherwise you wouldn't understand.
Yeah. Or like if you're making too many puns per second.
So
coming back. So today's shorty is on something called stoicism, right? And
we are all here with very straight faces for this.
And it is something that will make you, dear listener, more serene and composed than you already are. So you can't.
I mean, the moment they stop listening to our episode, in any case, their mental state of mind becomes calmer.
Yeah, actually, you just, it's like, I have many weird friends. So one weird friend, he told me that if he really wants to experience happiness, not feeling good, what he does, he drinks a lot of water and doesn't go to the bathroom. Till he is dying to go.
Right.
Okay. Until he can't hold it any longer, he'll hold on and then he'll go. And he says that happiness. So
wow, this seems like the whole of Catholicism. My
worry is if universal basic income becomes a thing, you'll have more such jokers doing experiments like this.
So
stoicism.
Yeah. So there are many ways of making people more serene and composed than they already are. Like universal basic income that we discussed in an earlier episode. If you give anonymous deposits into people's bank accounts, they'll generally become more.
That's a nice idea. It'll just make people's lives nicer by just randomly sending people money via UPI. Okay. Yeah. No, but let's move on.
Actually we should stand for government and we promise to do this. So just elect for us in the next election.
But I think all listeners should try and do this to us.
You can.
We'll relay the results of this experiment. We feel happy when you send us money randomly.
So instead of that, the next best thing is to explain the philosophy of stoicism. So
an alternative to UPI, stoicism.
So if no one is making anonymous deposits into your bank account and you still want to feel happy, maybe you should consider stoicism.
Okay.
So
how do you become stoic?
How do you become stoic? So first, little history.
What is stoicism actually? What is stoicism?
So stoicism was founded in Athens by this guy called Zeno of Citium. Okay. And this was in the 3rd century BC. Or maybe 4th century BC. BC. I heard this one. So sorry for the digression, but someone told me this joke. It says when Virat Kohli was a little kid, somebody asked him apparently, "What's your favorite TV channel?" So he said CNBC. So the guy said, "Kya baat hai? This kid listens to business channel." So no, he's telling you he listens to Cartoon Network. Yeah. Thank you, Virat. Yeah. So this guy, Zeno, was a Phoenician merchant.
They all are,
and they made a lot of money.
They're all finished.
But he was like a philosophical bent of mind, and he went into a bookshop. That is the story. So he went into a bookshop. They used to have
in those days, it must have been a scroll shop.
Yeah, scroll. So anyway, he's talking to the bookshop guy, and he saw a book called Xenophon's Memorabilia or something like that. And he was very happy to see, an account of Socrates' teaching. So then Socrates by that time was dead. So he asked the bookshop guy, who might I emulate to be? And he pointed out to one guy named Crates or Crates. And this Crates was what is called a cynic.
Okay.
And basically the cynics were just that. So they sort of try to ridicule everything. So
they were professional mockers.
Podcast hosts.
So this guy basically apparently Crates gave Zeno a bowl of lentil soup and made him run with it around Athens or something like that. And he ended up spilling it on his toga or something. And
is this the origin of xenophobia?
So Zeno got very phobic.
No, when the lentil soup fell down and created a little puddle, that became Dal Lake. So bad.
Anyway, he decided that the world needed a milder philosophy.
Yeah.
He started something called Stoicism. So it was
he started it.
Yeah. So he kept.
When the lentil
so he expounded it from a porch, and that porch was called Stoa.
Okay.
So that's why he was called a Stoic. And Zeno sort of passed away, and one of Zeno's admirers was a guy.
Tao of Seneca, by any chance?
Not Seneca. Another emperor who was one of the emperors after Alexander. So when Alexander died, there was a whole bunch of people who were like grabbing the emperorship. So one guy who grabbed the emperorship was an admirer of Zeno, and then other would-be emperors sort of killed him, and then Zeno was forgotten. And then there was this guy named Epictetus. So Epictetus had, no one knows what his chest measurements are. But
the elephant in the room has been answered. Thank you.
Yeah. So he was, he was actually a former slave.
Okay.
And then he became a free person. And then he founded the philosophy, which I'm going to tell you in a while.
Great while.
So this is on the history section. And Epictetus was followed by Seneca. So Seneca was the greatest of the Stoic philosophers. Because he was quite a guy. So he was a wise guy, and he was one of the tutors of Nero, the emperor who was famous for...
This is why he was fiddling with
the emperor who was famous for making blank CDs.
Blank CDs, which is such a clever name. So
it is a brilliant
Rom,
name. It is a fabulously brilliant name.
Nero
Burning Rom.
So Seneca was, people didn't like him because he was very, very sincere. And when his enemies found that they could take Seneca no longer, they told Nero that this guy is plotting against you. And Nero was one crackpot. So Nero asked Seneca, are you plotting against me? And Seneca said, if you think I'm plotting, but I'm not. Or some cryptic. So he interpreted as a yes. And he told Seneca to drink poison and die.
Okay.
And Seneca spent the last 3 hours of his life consoling everyone, saying that cool, I'm just fine, a little, cool. Boys will be boys.
Or was he trying to filibuster his way out of drinking poison?
But he died for it. So Seneca got poison. And then his sort of one of Nero's descendants was a guy named Marcus Aurelius.
Right.
So Marcus Aurelius, actually the whole Stoicism thing for me started from Marcus Aurelius because he makes an appearance in one Woodhouse book called Mating Season. So in Mating Season, this is the dialogue. Okay, he says, I turn to Jeeves. So Jeeves, yes sir. What do you mean, yes sir? I was endeavoring to convey my appreciation of the fact that your position is in many respects somewhat difficult, sir. But I wonder if I might call your attention to an observation of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He said, "Does aught befall you? It is good. It is part of the destiny of the universe, ordained for you from the beginning. All that befalls you is part of the great web." I breathed a bit stertorously. "He said that, did he?" "Yes, sir." "Well, you can tell him from me that he's an ass." So that was my first encounter.
Oh, what a tragedy it is that
It's
there
a
was no
lovely
Twitter
book.
during Woodhouse's days.
You would have been. So Marcus Aurelius and his predecessor Stoics were far from asses, evidently. They were kind, virtuous, and practical people who spelled out a philosophy that went much further than most philosophies towards helping people find calm and tranquility in their lives. So basically, one of the things, so this other book that I'm reading and on which I hope to do a little podcast one of these days, is this book called A Social Leap, which talks about how humans evolved from the apes. So the long story short, when there's this rift valley in Africa. So because of plate tectonics, one part of Africa is rising. The Eastern Africa is just rising. And as it started rising, humans are part of the tree-dwelling apes. And rainforest cover started reducing because as the plateau started rising, it started getting less and less rain. And as the tree cover reduced, more and more individuals had to come out on the grass.
Right.
And there, they were particularly helpless. So in the trees, even today, like chimpanzees, their predators are lions and leopards. Leopards and cheetahs can climb the trees, but you will not find a single one of them climbing the trees to go after chimps. Because in the trees, the chimps are incredibly powerful.
Oh.
So when humans descended, humans, they had to learn how to walk upright. Why? Because they needed weapons in their hands. Because otherwise they couldn't. So they needed a stick or something.
Right.
And if you're walking on all fours, like a chimp would walk on all fours, you can't carry a weapon with you. And so on and so forth. And then that caused, they were helpless alone. So they had to become more social. And if they had to be more social, you needed to have better communication between individuals.
Right.
And coincidentally, there was a mutation in the brain which led to an accelerated development. So that came at the right time. And, individuals. So that's not the point. The point is that when people started communicating between groups, there a lot of social dynamics changed within groups, which is not there in other animals. So humans have this sense of pride. They have a sense of guilt. All these things are important to function within a group.
This is suddenly like when everyone got on Twitter and realized
And as they started doing that, they've learned how to, there's something known as theory of mind. So you realize that what you are thinking is different from what other people are thinking, and they don't know what you're thinking. It starts giving rise to lying.
Right.
And because of social dynamics, lying is bad. And so a lot of things. So what happens is all humans become extremely confused and stressed because they are trying to balance two things: a sense of their own self, which is obviously, you have to live with yourself. So you are essentially good. But there are things that are happening outside which you make you act in bad ways and things like that. And this stress has been there evidently since Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. So they came out with a very simple way of addressing these things, which again found popularity because there is another technique called cognitive behavioral therapy, which embodies a number of these things. So I thought we would do a little summary of what these things are. And these are the 10 key principles. So basic principle, the keyest principle is that there are things which you can change and there are things which you can't.
Sure.
And the things which you cannot change, you just have to accept and just focus on the things you can change. So we tend to be upset if something bad happens. Let us say a political party we don't like comes into power. That has come into power. So you can't be upset.
Yeah.
Or you lose your job, or you get some sickness which is going to be really debilitating, or something like that.
Basically like that poster, which says, God give me coffee for the things I can control and whiskey for the things I can't.
Yeah, so that's pretty stoic. So anyway, these are the 10
But
key
that's,
principles.
so stoicism is different from fatalism, or?
Yeah, so it is different in the sense that it asks you to be sort of active.
Yeah.
Right. Fatalism is
more
you just you
resigned
want
to
die.
fate.
Everything is fate.
and that's you are going to die today or tomorrow. As a matter of time, just sort of crawl into some cave and wait for the inevitable. So that's not what Stoicism
This
is.
is more
Though
positive.
actually that does make a lot of sense. Looking for caves, a nice 2 BHK cave somewhere. Yeah. So first key principle is live in agreement with nature. So what separates human beings from animals are our mental and social abilities. So otherwise, we are meant to apply reason to all our action. So what the Stoics say that you have to live in agreement with our nature by applying reason to our actions. So whatever you do, whenever you do something, there are two ways of doing everything. One is impulsive and one is reasoned. And we all do that. We get angry on things, something, or we get irrationally sort of upset by something. So if you just stand back, think about the nature of those things and do. So loudspeakers, for example, you're sitting in your house, it's a Sunday morning and somebody starts blaring
Heavy metal.
it's something and it upsets you. And the Stoic says it because that's the nature of whatever that person is who is. So that's what they say, living in agreement with nature.
Oh, so nature is not just tree, plants,
nature
trees,
of
but
things.
nature of things. Oh, wow.
The second point is live by virtue. So Stoicism is unfortunately not a dissolute way of, basically it is saying that you live virtuously.
Okay.
And basically what it says is that you have to do the right thing no matter what. So that's the thing.
Okay.
It's like that.
People are going to screw you, but you...
Yeah, so if it's, and there is this thing about friendship also. So, I value your friendship.
Yeah.
But let us say I know that you have committed some crime or you've done something bad. Then it is my beholden duty to...
Yeah.
There's no conflict.
Yeah.
Beholden duty to?
Rat on him, basically. Throw him under the bus.
Yeah, don't let friendship come in the way of your politics, has been newly said.
That's what's... It's difficult, okay? So
all of this is difficult.
It's not...
Because there are some things that you have committed, some egregious puns that you have made. But despite that, I am tolerating you, Narendra.
The third thing is focus on what you can control and accept what you can't. What I was saying.
Yeah. Whiskey,
so that's the keyest. The whiskey thing. So
keep your bar well stocked.
Basically, Okay.
Yeah.
This is useful. Yes.
Number 4 is distinguish between good, bad, and indifferent things.
Oh, okay.
So only good is virtue, right? So wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline, these are the only good things. And the only bad things are vices, such as injustice, coward, and...
or everything else that solves the previous thing, like whiskey.
And everything else is there. So wealth, health, those things are indifferent. It doesn't... it's neither good nor bad.
Oh, okay.
There are some good indifferent thing and some bad indifferent thing, but they're all basically indifferent.
Yeah.
So basically...
Why are they indifferent?
Because for the Stoic, it's the virtue which is the most important.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you can't control your health. Or
and wealth and whatever. So it doesn't really matter. It shouldn't affect your happiness at all.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what they say. Then take action like a true philosopher. So I don't know what this one means actually.
Yeah, sure.
But that's what the Stoics say. And here's another interesting one, and I think it's actually very sensible. It says practice misfortune. So practice misfortune is potentially bad. So if you imagine that you're going, so he says everyone should experience some hardships. To be in tune with what might.
So
please
always continue listening to Simblified.
So one of my favorite podcasts is Tim Ferriss. He is a big believer in this thing. He's a big fan of Tao Seneca, and he's actually working on an audiobook series that transcribes or whatever the Stoic learnings. And one of the things that he said, either he did it or somebody who also follows it is they do these random experiments like. You just lie down in a public space. Just lie down. That's it. Without any explanation, no sign, nothing. And just wants to see how people react. And once he does something like this, he overcomes a mental block, right? Even though that act by itself means nothing.
Correct.
He, feels like he's overcome, what will people think? Because nobody really thinks. If I go and sit in the middle of SP Road over there, sure, eventually a cop will come and take me away. But people come, look, whatever this idiot wants to let him do, and then they'll go away. It's not like nothing's going to happen.
Actually, we should, the next
please do not.
Next episode, we should have the most stupid thing you've done in a public place.
Done.
Yeah. So think about it. Next one is add a reserve clause to your action. So basically what he's saying is choose to do your very best to succeed and simultaneously know and accept that the ultimate outcome is beyond your direct control. This is basically what the Bhagavad Gita says. You do your
Just
best, whether you get your result or not.
Yeah, God will be indifferent to the rest.
And the 8th one is my favorite. It is called Amor Fati.
Sorry?
So, AMORFATI.
It's like
what it means in Latin.
In love.
Yeah.
Amor fat gayi.
Amor Fati is Bengali for I am scared.
I am scared. Okay.
Amor Fati. Yeah. But what in Latin it means love everything that happens.
Wow.
So whatever happens,
everything
is good.
Yeah. This is why you don't see that many Italians marrying Bengalis.
Yeah. How many Italians do you know? I don't know. So therefore there are
What does it translate to?
Love everything that happens.
Love everything that
Amor
happens.
means to love, and fati is whatever happens.
Everything that happens. So it's more like, okay, fair enough, accepting that everything that happens happens for a reason, that sort of thing. I don't know about love.
You have to love Arnab Goswami. You have to love
Fair
anything.
enough.
or like change the channel.
So turn obstacles into opportunities.
Fair enough. So Arnab Goswami, you then
Make
take
a
the
podcast
opportunity to make a
episode on
podcast episode about it. Exactly. There we go.
So like what Kunal Kamra says. Like, kahan milega
itna content? Yes, exactly. How boring a world where all this...
Yeah, what man? I can't imagine how people lived in the Doordarshan. I did. Doordarshan, and nothing. The most controversial thing was somebody said that you have to add 10 grams of NPK fertilizer to how can it is 15 grams. How can
if Trump loses this election, I'm just wondering what all these guys are going to do. Colbert is going to go weekly.
All of them,
So, but the counter thing to that is basically like it's not the action itself, it's in your nature
reaction,
to outrage about things.
So no, it
actually 10 grams or 15 grams, you can outrage
it goes
about
with
that.
the earlier one, which says that you have to accept what you cannot change and sort of do what you can. So work on what you can. Right. And this clause is like, no, not make it a fatalistic, I can't change this, I can't change that, I can't. So if you do have an obstacle, you have to actively seek to overcome it and use it to your advantage. And the last one is be mindful. So this is something that I've been trying to do. It's called mindfulness meditation. It's basically living in this moment, and it is much easier said
as
than
opposed
done.
to worrying about what happened before, what could happen.
So
in the
we
future.
don't. So we've been talking,
and
how much have we paid attention to what has been said? Very little.
On Simplified, very.
So you drift, right?
Yeah.
So you keep thinking about different
other things.
Yeah. And so Zen Buddhists and all do that. When they're doing one thing, they do only that.
Focus on one thing. No multitasking.
No multitasking. Yeah.
Well done. Okay, so 10 steps to become stoic. To
How
your life.
How many tabs does a stoic have open on their phone?
Good question. So that's about stoicism from me.
Yeah.
And now that I've solved everyone's unhappiness
you have solved everyone's happiness, yes.
The least I expect, dear listener, is that you get
simply send money.
Simply send money into our account. It will be there. The account details will be there in the link. Sure. So see you till next week.
Next week.
Yeah,
stay
safe. Stay stoic.
Yeah, sure.
Stay
simplified. Yes.
I hope you enjoyed that show. We'd like to thank our sponsors this week, HDFC Life and Paytm Money. And let me tell you a couple of things that you should check out this week. On Litnama, Lakshmi talks to Hardik Waghela and Mohammad Muneem from the band The Words of Aleph. They talk about how the band came to be and more. On Football Football, the guys talk about Liverpool qualifying for the Champions League, City getting banned from it, and Arsenal thrashing Newcastle for a 4-0 win. On Golgappa, tune into a Laugh Riot episode where host Tripti talks to Karan and Neil from Bhadipa. On our Kannada podcast Thale Harate, Ramya Bhaskar and Sridhar Pavisetti talk to Ganesh and Pawan about reimagining school education for Industry 4.0. On Tapri Tales, Madhuri tells a tale of her struggle with keeping cockroaches away from the kitchen while wondering why there are no cockroaches in her mother's kitchen. On Beyond Cliché, Almas is joined by the Mahiwe actor Pushti Shakti to talk about beauty beyond size. Thanks and keep listening.
Remember the last vacation you took? What about the one you took 3 years ago? Okay, how much do you really remember? It's a question I've asked myself often over a decade of traveling the world. Hey, I'm Utsav, and I do not travel the world for a living. I have a full-time job and responsibilities, but I have made traveling the world a priority. Priority enough that I negotiate extra leave in my job contracts, obsessively track my frequent flyer miles, and I'm willing to take off at the sight of a cheap ticket. Yes, I am cheap. I have lived and worked in 3 countries. I understand human behavior for a living. And these experiences have given me unique insights into places, people, and culture. With over a decade of travel behind me, I increasingly realized one thing, that we cannot see everything. So whatever we see, we must see deeply. Because as the film of memory decays, the imprints which will stand the test of time are the ones felt by the immersion of the senses, not by fleeting encounters with them. Postcards from Nowhere is an immersion into the world of slow travel, one story at a time. Tune in every Thursday on the IVM Podcasts app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.